See, good. Thank God I made this. Almost every mistake that it's possible to make with this recording stuff, I've made. You finish a whole class, suddenly you realize, oh, I didn't push this button. Oh, I didn't turn on this thing. I don't believe it. I made the whole class for nothing. This has happened to me. If it would happen one time and I would learn, it would be all right. But everything has happened, like 10 times. So thank God, sometimes, most of the times I remember now. And that now was just one of the times. So thank the creator of the universe that enabled me to remember to turn this thing on. Okay. So that's what he says. By taking this attitude, then the whole world becomes a house for God, for God's essence. Like we just finished learning in the Mimer. Then he said, everything that I have, I'm going to give a tenth. Yaakov said, everything that you give to me, whether it is physical or spiritual, I'm going to, this is what's called 1/10. What is the 10th? The 10th is the 10th of the 10th. This is the this is the sphere, the aspect of God, which is called Keter, God's pleasure. I'll give this back to you, to your essence. Everything you give me, I'm going to give back to you. Lecha, I'll give it to you, your essence, God. That's what Yaakov's attitude that he had. And we can take the same attitude ourselves. And this is not something which is only relegated to biblical characters. We're also biblical characters. We are also biblical characters. The Torah is given to us so that we will be like Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Not that we'll be as old as they were, or we will be as defiant, we will be as positive as they were. Namely what? That we too can see the truth, that the world is an amazing, incredibly beautiful, exciting, challenging creation. Every instant, brand new. And we have to look every minute, everything that happens, we have to understand that everything that's happening is an opportunity to serve the Creator. And sometimes not nice things happen, right? That's also an opportunity. How we react to things. A lot of the ideas that I'm saying also, they come from a psychologist, that the Rebbe recommended his ideas. Professor Viktor Frankl. I mean, in my estimation, I learned philosophy. I'm not a big expert, but he is, in my estimation, the most accurate of all the philosophers. I mean, all the others are, some are more genius than there's Kant and these people, but they all mess things up in the end. They all deny the existence of God or the existence of purpose or whatever it is, right? With their tremendous genius, so they explain a lot of things. And if you ask me, first of all, he kept himself only within the realm of healing. What is going to heal a person? That's what and he stressed very, very much this idea of responsibility. He didn't say responsibility to God, but nevertheless, he said responsibility is an essential part of human psyche and health. And that's the whole idea that the Rebbe is trying to say over here. That you're talking about regular physical, psychological health, and the Rebbe is saying, I'm talking about godly health, to heal the whole entire world. So he says, that's the reason why he took these stones and he put them around his head. Why did he put these stones? He said he put the stones around his head. He made sort of like a fence around his head with these stones. Why? It says, because he was afraid of the wild animals. Now, any normal person knows that wild animals also attack other parts of your body. Wild animals, as far as I know, wild animals, I don't think there is such a thing as any wild animal that only attacks heads, people's heads. No such thing. I mean, Yaakov didn't know that. If he was afraid of wild animals, then he must have been aware what wild animals do. I think the most juicy parts of a person are his muscles or his stomach. Who knows what it is? I'm not a wild animal, but I mean, I try not to be. But a person's legs, a nice leg, a pulke, you gotta take, right? Why did Yaakov only put rocks around his head to protect him from the wild animals? So we'll see in a minute. As he says, and these stones, these rocks that he put around his head, they started an argument. And the argument was that each one wanted to be the stone that Yaakov put his head on. So God made them into one big stone. So, okay, let's go back to the beginning. What would possibly help if he made rocks around his head? The animals, how do you say, wild animals, they can tear up the rest of his body. So it's explained that it's true. Rashi, what Rashi meant, that Yaakov really put the stones, some people say, that Yaakov put the stones around his whole body. Why did Rashi say that he put it around his head? Therefore, he said, that's why he said marzov. A marzov is like a how do you say, a fence. So let's say, marzov is like a pipe that goes around his whole body. In other words, he made it around his whole body. Lo shayach marzov elo keshesh lo maschila. Says that there's only a marzov. A marzov is like the pipe that comes out from the trough, whatever it is. But nevertheless, we have to understand. Good, he put it around his whole body. All right, good. He didn't put it around his head. So there's no question about Yaakov. He wasn't a fool. He put it around his body. Let's say, but nevertheless, it says it says that he put the stones under his head, around his head. How is it going to help by means of putting a stone or rocks around his head? Why was the main thing to protect his head? And not only that, even more, if you put it around his head so the animals will jump over, right? A lion or something sees a nice ear or something that he wants to eat, so he'll jump over the fence and eat the ear. It's a problem. Yaakov really thought, he says, the explanation is like this. According to regular learning, we can't understand it. Simple meaning, there's no understanding. Why Yaakov would put up rocks around his body to save it from wild animals. Rocks will save an animal. Go into a cave or something and put a rock in front of the cave so they can't get out. How is it going to be that the rocks around his body, and especially around his head, are going to save him from wild animals? So he says the answer is like this. Yaakov took from the stones of the place and he put it for a pillow under his head, around his head. And this was a spiritual thing that he did. This drew down and revealed the light of the soul that's called surrounding level. That this is the whole idea of the stones. Stones are like stubbornness, power. A stone, you can't talk to a stone. Power, you want to build a house, you build it from stones. Kasher mitkalis, when there is revealed that the physical existence, the true existence of what the physical world is, the soul of the world, then there's no concealment. There's no concealment. Of the physical world doesn't conceal godliness. The physical world is, so to speak, not important. It's just like an extension of godliness. So therefore, the animals can't harm him. Something like it wasn't in Noah's Ark. What was in Noah's Ark? There were all these wild animals there, and they weren't penned in. They stopped being wild. They stopped being wild. If they were wild, and even if they were just thrashing around, there wasn't enough room in this ark for them. The ark wasn't big enough for the hippopotamuses, and the hippopotamuses can be really vicious, and rhinoceroses, elephants. There's no room for these things, right? So all of them were quiet. Why were all the animals in Noah's Ark? Why were they quiet? Because there was a revelation of godliness that showed the animals don't have to worry. They don't have to kill each other. It'll be okay. the animals. Same thing with Daniel and the lion's den. It explains in the Tanya, chapter 24, that the Daniel and the lion's den, in a way, it wasn't a miracle. Because animals, even wild animals, they are, I say, nullified, surrendered in front of God. And the only ones that can really reveal God are Jews, human beings. Eventually, it'll be human beings, but I mean, don't try it at home. But nevertheless, that's the fact. It goes because that the place of the dwelling of the godly soul is in the brain and the head, and from then it spreads out to all the limbs. Therefore, the main revelation of the power, the assertiveness of the godly soul, like stones, is in the head, in the brain. How can you reveal God to yourself? Right? The way of doing it is you have to understand there's something above my understanding, but that is an idea. Godliness is revealed through consciousness. Consciousness, of course, is only a creation, and consciousness can not grasp, but consciousness senses there's something above. And that's what Yaakov wanted to protect, this sense that there's something above him. That's what Rashi says, that they had made a fight. The rocks fought against each other. On which rock will Yaakov put his head? This battle between the stones, which were in this circle around his head, these were the stones with the stones around his head, and the other stones which were around his body. The point of this, because it says that, okay, it says that the stones that were around his head, that's something like a lot of people have in their houses, right? You have, I don't know, I remember I have in my house here, right here also. There's like a trough that goes around the end of the roof on the top. And then that trough comes down and there's a pipe that comes down from the corner. It shoots out all the water. With that pipe, that's called a marzev. And the trough that's around it, that's what's called mazchelet. That's what it's called. So it says the mazchelet, that was the rocks that were around his body. Anyways, they were battling one another. All of them said, I want the tzaddik to put his head on me. In other words, the power of this awareness of God, the power of the soul, which is symbolized by stones, namely the revelation of the holiness of the body of Jacob, was like the revelation of godliness in the head of Jacob. What's higher? It says when God chose the Jews, it says in the Tanya, when God chose the Jews, where is it in chapter 29? I think I have to look and see. When God chose the Jews, what did he choose? He chose their body, the Jewish body, which is similar to that of the non-Jews. God chose it because it's similar. So that's the idea. That was the battle. Which is higher, the body, because the body does the commandments, or the head, which the head gets awareness. Miyad, so God made them all to one stone. What does it mean? Revelation, the power of holiness was made equal. And the head of Yaakov and the body of Yaakov. That was the whole idea of him laying down. Complete joining and unity of up and down. Your head has one purpose. Your head and your brain has the ability to be aware of God, and that's its purpose. And your body with your heart, that has also a purpose. Neither one of them is more important than the other. Both are essential. Serving God with your body, doing the commandments, having love of God, fear of God, and also understanding God, having a grasp of God. They're both of equal importance. That's what, because they're creations of God. Both of them can serve God in a unique way. That's what it means they became one stone. By means of the revelation of the essence of God, then it says that he laid down in that place what? As an equality of the head and the foot. Therefore, the animals could not rule over him. And also we're talking about the animals from Befinim, from inside. bad impulses, bad ideas, bad urges. Since the revelation of the essence of God is made by means of coming down below, because this revelation of godliness from above, this is revelations of God. Sometimes only what's below, which conceals God, this is what arouses the essence of God to be revealed. Let's say, I'll give you an example. Maybe, I don't know if this is an example, but a person has two sons. One is a genius, a successful person. He's in the newspapers. He's a big leader. The father has tremendous satisfaction from the son. Then there's another son that he was taken into kidnap. He was kidnapped. He was a pretty simple son. He wasn't that successful. A normal person like everybody else, like me and you. A normal person. If this son that was kidnapped, all of a sudden the police call up and they say, listen, we caught the kidnappers and your son is free. This man is going to have more nachas, more pleasure, and more joy from this simple son because his body was taken into imprisonment and now it got out. He is getting more, say, satisfaction from his simple son's body than he gets from his genius son's mind. Says that's the thing, that the body and the head, the same thing with God. There's genius Jews, tremendous productive Jews, and then there's simple Jews and sometimes even destructive Jews, right? But in the end, they're all creations of the Creator. They're all Jews. And because of this, they're in God's eyes, they're all equal. They're loved equally. That's the idea of the Rebbe. That's why the Rebbe is the Moshiach. He's the representative of God's way of looking at the world in the world. That's what reveals the essence of God that's above all limitations. Therefore, this is the true power of holiness. The revelation of God's essence by means of these stones. Stones, this is made afterwards a matzeva. Then he took these stones, which previously were just rocks, they had no intelligence. There just was the simple power of the Creator, and he made it into a matzeva, into a monument, that it became a house for God, a place where God can be revealed in his essence. As we're going to continue, God willing, tomorrow. Let's do a little bit of the Yom Yom today. All right, so just a short summary of what the Rebbe said. We're not finished with the Rebbe's Sikha yet. But the Rebbe said that the same thing that the Mimer said that we learned in the morning, but he said from a different angle. That the purpose of Yaakov, everything that he did in the world, was to show how precious and valuable and holy the world is. How tremendously important every detail of the world is. But we have to take precautions that the world doesn't conquer us. The world can be a very dangerous thing. And therefore, Yaakov, he took these precautions by putting rocks all around him. The rocks were a simple devotion and surrender to the Creator of the universe. Simple his connection to God's essence, which is creating everything infinitely low, but it's above everything, even the upper worlds, infinitely high. And by means of this devotion that he had, arousing his soul to appreciate the Creator and everything that he did, those were the rocks that protected him. That protected him from the bad things in the world, the wild animals, and the bad things in himself, the wild animals. But that was only step number one. By protecting yourself from bad, by defying the world. The next step is to use the world for holiness. That's through the Torah, pouring oil on this one rock that became a monument. And eventually this monument becomes the house of God, that the whole world will be able to, this will be available to all mankind, that everyone can feel the reason for creation, the reason they're being created, the challenge of life, and the excitement of being partners with God, every human being. That was a summary of what we just learned. My father said that when you read Shema before you go to sleep at night. Now, the Jewish people, we're supposed to say this prayer, Shema Yisrael, 6 words. It's a sentence in the Bible. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Jews, God is our power. Our God is one. He's our God. He's our power, and he's one. This is what a person is supposed to say twice a day. It's a commandment to say twice a day. You're supposed to say it in the morning, in the first whatever a portion of the day, first quarter of the day, and you're supposed to say it in the evening after the sun sets. So it says, but in addition to this, we also say Shema before we go to bed. Before you go to bed at night, you say Shema, and if you want to be a little bit more, what I call it, religious, then there's a whole set of prayers called Kriya Shema Shalamita. There's a whole set of prayers. Most of them are Psalms of King David that we say before you go to sleep. Shema Yisrael. Everyone can say it, non-Jews as well. You look it up, called Kriya Shema Shalamita, the Shema before you go to bed. Bedtime Shema, whatever it says in your siddur. So in other words, we're reading Shema Yisrael. It's an obligation to read this sentence. Some people say not just the sentence, but the whole paragraph that the sentence is in. Anyway, to say this, you have to understand what you're saying. But it's only 6 words. To say these words before you go to sleep, as well as saying it in the morning and saying it after the sun sets. There's another custom that we have to say it before you go to sleep. It says when you say Shema before you go to sleep, there's another time also we have a custom. There's another time where there's a custom to say Shema Yisrael, and that's right before you die. Right before you die. I mean, everybody, you probably have noticed that people die, right? Well, the fact of the matter is everybody dies. Everyone dies. And before you die, I mean, may you live long lives, but, there's a limit to all good things. Huh? Before you die, you're supposed to say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That's what you're supposed to say. You don't understand it? Translate it into English. Say it in English. Say it in French. Say it in German. Say whatever language you want to. Say Shema Yisrael before you die. Don't forget. Don't forget, because if you forget, too late. You can't remember you're saying it before you die. So say Shema before you die. Okay, so we have 2 customs. One custom is to say Shema Yisrael every night before you go to sleep. And another one is to say Shema Yisrael before you die. Right before you die. And the other 2 times we say that's a commandment from the Torah to say it early in the morning and to say it after the sun sets. That's from the Torah. That's the 2 times it's a Torah obligation, but there's an additional 2 times that before you go to sleep and before you die. So it says, saying Shema before you go to sleep, this is a miniature, sort of like a miniature preparation for saying Shema before you die. But when a person dies, so he leaves the marketplace permanently. And what it says that your life in this world now to do them is finished. That's it. When a person dies, he can't fix things up anymore. Other people can fix up for him. People can say Kaddish for him. They can do good deeds in his name. But he himself can't do anything. But when a person says Shema in the nighttime before you go to sleep, which that's something like, death is something like going to sleep. To sleep, to be or not to be, to sleep, perchance to dream. When you die, are you going to be there or not? Who knows? But the fact of the matter is, the Torah says, is that you will be there, but you can't do anything. You haven't got any free will after you die. No more free will. It says after a person dies, so he still is there, still exists, but he can't do anything. He's finished. He can't fix himself up anymore. When a person says Shema in the nighttime, though, before he goes to sleep, which that's something like before you die, but you're still in the middle of the market, so to speak. You're still in the middle of life, and you can wake up tomorrow morning and you can change things and achieve things. So why do you say Shema before you go to sleep? To make a reckoning, to think, listen, it could be maybe I'm not going to wake up tomorrow. Could be, you don't know. So let's imagine, I mean, I hope I do, but let's imagine it happens, eventually it's going to happen one day anyway. So let's imagine that I'm not going to wake up tomorrow. What have I done today? What have I done with my life? What have I done with others, right? Have I lived a life that has any sort of meaning, nothing eternal to it? That's in the nighttime before you go to bed. Then you can say, but one second, wait before I die, I say Shema Yisrael, that's it, last time, right? It's only on the past what I did. God forgive me if I made any mistakes, have mercy on me, that's it, he dies. But when you go to sleep, before you go to sleep, so you should also say the same thing, God forgive me, maybe I won't wake up in the morning. But then you think, but the fact is, I'm going to wake up in the morning. So God help me to fix this up. Anything I did wrong in the past, and there's a lot of times you don't do anything wrong, but you just didn't do according to your ability. And a lot of times you just didn't believe in yourself. You have to fix that up also. A lot of times you have bad attitudes. Also, you can fix it up. Not tomorrow, you can fix things up. The Shema that you say before you go to bed, it's something like the Shema that you say before you die. In other words, you're taking accounting of your life, but also you have to take an account the Shema before you go to sleep. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up, not like when I die, but tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I can still accomplish things and achieve and fix things up. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, 3:00, we're going to learn, God willing, Chumash. Tell your friends. See you all. Shalom uvracha.